Hello, this is Rumor reporting to you from my childhood home in the region of Chi-Town, Illinois. Doing a video from here for the first time since last year, which some of you might recall was a time, unfortunately, of a great loss in the family. This time around, I'm pleased to report that this visit is under much more pleasant circumstances. It's actually been a time of celebration, welcoming a new member into the family through marriage as my sweet niece, the oldest grandchild on my side of the family, has gotten married to a great guy. She truly met her match, and it's been a lovely time. Anyways, I just thought I would fulfill a sort of promise that I made in my last video to share the decks that I accumulated over on this side of the Atlantic. Whereas before I had shared the ones that I purchased in the UK since the spring. And all the while I was placing my little online orders for decks to be delivered over here so I could save on shipping, or maybe it just wasn't available overseas, whatever the case might have been. So I thought maybe I would do like an actual unboxing as I was like discovering for myself what the hell I had over here, but I have actually already, impatiently opened everything up, and I've already been using decks while I've been here. I've been here for a few weeks now, and I'm actually towards the end of my visit, which all in all I think is about 6 weeks. So yeah, it's been a long stretch. But yeah, I wasn't organized in my last video sharing the new decks I gotten, so I'm really not going to be here either, but, well, I have at least maybe a couple of categories. The first being decks that I received from a dear friend in a tarot swap. So I was so happy to find such a lovely home for a couple of my decks, and in return, she sent me the Star Spinner Tarot, which I haven't been working with a lot right now because now that we are getting into autumn, or we have officially reached the equinox, I'm getting in the mood for the autumnal feeling decks, and before too long, these spooky decks. Oh yes, so close to my favorite time of year. But this deck feels like something I will love using probably spring or like earlier summer, because the vibrant colors are just beautiful. It's so colorful, and I don't always go for like a busy design, but I really do love these white borders that are not super intricate, but it does add like this nice framing. And yeah, there's a lot of pattern and color going on in these designs as well, but I don't know, I really like the style of it, and there's something very fairy tale about it. And typically I use my Tarot of the Divine if I'm feeling that fairy tale mood, so I'm actually curious to see how this might go with that deck if I wanted to do a tarot on tarot pairing. Because again, that's another deck with really vibrant colors and these white borders, and so I feel like they might complement each other well that way. And for whatever kind of reading I would want to do that for, if it would be like doing some bibliomancy with fairy tales and then doing a tarot reading to follow to pull a message from the story that I can translate into my life and learn from in some way. And there's just this real sense of whimsy in this deck, and I avoided getting it just because I felt like Tarot of the Divine was filling that space in my collection, and that might still be the case, but I do just feel like this brings something a little different. I do get a different vibe from this. What that is exactly, my pea brain cannot articulate at this moment. I really do just need to work with it more. But meanwhile, I am very grateful that I was able to get this and try it out in the swap. So again, that was the Star Spinner Tarot, which came with this little guidebook. Also in this swap, I got an as yet to be unwrapped Buffy Tarot, because really, can I have enough of these things? I have my original copy back in the UK, which I edged in red, and I have done a walkthrough on and basically screamed my fool head off over. It's not a perfect deck. I know the fandom has had a lot to say about some choices that could have been maybe a little bit more on point in some cases, but in general, I was really thrilled with the deck, and I continue to be. It is definitely so much fun. But speaking of the Buffy deck, I already did have an extra copy over here as well to use while I'm on these shores, and I thought, well, now since I've got this extra, I love my original version edged in red back where I live, and now I've got this other one as a spare in case I completely botched this one, but I really wanted to try trimming the colorful borders off the deck. There was kind of no rhyme or reason to the colors chosen for each card. It didn't seem to have any significance as far as the card's meaning or the structure of the deck. I don't find it a distraction. I liked the colors, and so that's why I've got my other copy, but I thought it would be neat to try trimming those borders off. Can I just... I love him. I love him so much. But look at... Anyways, I thought it looks really cool without the borders too. And now that this is a smaller version, I'm thinking, I don't know, this could become my purse deck. The one that I carry around with me because I like the card stock. It feels sturdy enough to tote around, and because I have like 1 million copies of this deck already, if something were to happen to it, I guess I'm all set. But this is a card I can't really get on board with for Eight of Chalices, aka Eight of Cups. It's like I can kind of... Wow, that was a card trick, wasn't it? Where'd it go? Okay. It didn't like what I was having to say about it, so it was like, I'm out of here. But that sense of like moving on, I could kind of like really stretch to figure out how that was coming across in the scene of Buffy, but overall, just like this fast motion of this card doesn't really evoke what Eight of Cups means to me. So it's one of those where it's like, ah, shucks, but ah, well, I can work with it because a lot of the others I definitely don't have a problem using in the vein of Rider-Waite. This is another card that a lot of us Buffy fans kind of, you know, struggle with how that translates to Three of Wands, but whatever. Then you get one like this, William the Bloody as the Knight of Chalices, and it's like, okay, all is forgiven. And I don't know, I think maybe my all-time favorite card in the deck, well, aside from this, because see above, R.E. squeal over Spike, but one of my favorite cards, if not my favorite, is Giles and Joyce from the Band Candy episode for the Six of Chalices, or the Six of Cups. So yeah, I thought that this turned out really well. I didn't really get super careful with my measurements, so they're definitely not all the same size. It's kind of rough edges, but I don't know. Sometimes I like that, though. I kind of like the feel of it in my hands if it's just feeling a little raw and rugged. And like I said, I think this is one that I'll take on the road with me and just pop into my bag and become a portable deck, even though it's not exactly a pocket size like you would find in a tarot in a tin. But anyways, thank you to my friend and fellow knight Marlena, who swapped with me for the Star Spinner and the Buffy deck that kind of gave me the permission to try this trimming. Okay, and this is where any sense of organization or categories kind of falls apart. I guess I could stick with tarot to start because I do have some oracle decks here, but yeah, scrap that. I'm going to go with a couple decks that give me the seaside feels, and apologies in advance. Speaking of decks that are still shrink wrapped, I got the Tempest Tarot really soon before traveling here, actually, because I was just in such an oceanic mood. I was using my ocean decks back in the UK for the summer. I had been contemplating this deck for a while and talking myself out of it constantly. And I find that I will do that for a lot of decks, and when I talk myself out of it, I tend to stay pretty like firm in that decision. But there are ones that I keep waffling on, and they keep creeping into my mind. And so when that happens over a long stretch of time, I typically do just cave and get it already, just to see if in my hands, is there something to it? Is this something that I would want to add? Not just add, but like keep in my collection as well. So we'll have to see about that, because this didn't come in a box or a bag, and I don't have anything for it as yet. I've got something back home that I'll use, so I didn't want to open it already and have to be dealing with loose cards. So apologies for that, but here's at least the King of Pentacles showing on the other side. So this is a pip style deck. And I just always loved the artwork, and I think my other Oceanic decks are not pips. So I think it would be a neat complement to those to mix it up. I like the mood that's evoked in this deck, and I'm really bummed that I can't show more of it. But then to go along with it, kind of getting on a playing card kick, and playing cards are not something that I want to like amass too much, because I have a very, very, very cursory knowledge of cardomancy when it comes to reading with playing cards. But I thought this was just such a super cool deck. I don't even know how I came across it, but again, when I saw that oceanic theme and like the mermaids as jokers, I wanted that. But here's the card back. And this is Bicycle Neptune's Graveyard. Again, I loved the backs. I thought they'd look really cool with this. And you get the illustrations with the aces and a subtle design, but like the skulls with the ocean, cool. That's like combining two elements I love a lot. So you get that very like subtle image in each of these cards, and I just like the fade and the vintage style of how the numbers and everything are rendered. But then you get kick-ass skull pirates, basically, or skeleton pirates, I should say, for the court cards in each suit. And just to show a few more. So yeah, this just felt like very Pirates of the Caribbean for me and completely tickled my fancy. So, but also feeling very seaside to me, I could not resist getting Kelly at the Truth and Stories Nellie deck. So here is Nellie's deck and journal. The deck came in this darling vintage looking bag, and while this is a paperback book, it is styled to look like an old worn leather cover. And many others have been talking about this deck, and Kelly has very comprehensive videos on it, but this concept, I eat it all up. This idea of not just having it as a guidebook for the card itself, but having this whole storyline attached to it, basically, like it's Nellie's journal, and we're reading about her experiences and thoughts, and even her thoughts on what these cards mean as she was taught them, however she came to learn them. It's just like this whole story world to dive into, which is so Kelly, of course, right? The truth in story. She loves story, and I love story too. So I'm just so excited to dive into someone else's imagination like this. And so it becomes this whole other experience outside of just throwing down some cards and doing a typical reading. So it's definitely a standout in what I have collected to date. And then the journal is filled with all this like vintage ephemera that Kelly has created and by hand just stuck in there like old newspaper articles. There was a feather somewhere in here, and don't want to give everything away in case you get it and want to be surprised, but it's just like, it's so delightful. And again, it just lends itself that much more to the imagination. And so, oh, just how the card backings were done to look like something vintage. The cards, just that tone, and there's a texture to them, and the coloring looks like worn and aged paper, and the shades and degree of wear as it appears varies card to card. So it's not like she just took one template and used it for each one. You can kind of see the different gradation in color as goes through there. And then, of course, her lovely artwork. But she's basically created what appears like a playing card deck, but it's a full 78 card tarot deck. So it can be used as a tarot. Because if you see with the clubs, if you flip it, it's the wand. So she's got the corresponding suits there for tarot as they pair with the playing cards. And then you can see their strength to go with tarot. But then when it does correspond to a typical playing card, then she also has, well, you could just do that playing card divination, but then she also has the Lenormand, the 36 cards of the Lenormand system in here too. And it's just a whole thing. It's really, really clever how she did this. So it just captures so many forms of cartomancy in one. And I have been reading with this already. And since I don't consider Lenormand or playing card divination to be particular strengths of mine, I'm hoping that my excitement over this deck is going to encourage me to work with that even more and just sort of hone my ability to work with fortune telling decks like that. And I appreciate in the meantime that I can always fall back on my tarot knowledge and use the deck that way. But I do want to challenge myself with the other systems too. And so this is something I'm really going to have to sit with and feel my way through to determine how that's going to best work for me and kind of find my own way through it too. I feel like that's the main thing in working with these other non-tarot cartomancy systems. I feel like I get kind of overwhelmed when I try too hard to like memorize a traditional way or someone else's way. I feel like I'm not finding how I can like intuitively grab meaning from that. Like I'm trying too hard, like I'm thinking about it too much. And so that's something that I think I've said a lot in this channel that I'm always working towards to see like how I can make these systems work for me. Or is it a case where I'm just going to conclude they don't, it's not what resonates most with me. So maybe tarot is just the best way that I can speak with the cards. I don't know, but if Nellie's deck can't do it for me, no deck can, and I really think it will. It's already been an absolute delight to work with. So then I also had waiting for me here the Raven's Dream Tarot, which was just recently shipped out. And this is indie. So the cardstock is different from her decks that have gone mass market. I have the Urban Crow Oracle Indie Edition, the Grimalkin Tarot, the Forhaxa Tarot. Absolutely love that one. And is that? Yeah, I think that's all the decks that I have by her so far. And now this Raven's Dream. And I would say size-wise, it seems proportionally the same as her other indie decks, but it has more of a matte, and maybe not a full-on rose petal finish, but there's a bit more grip to it, because I will say, as much as I do love the cardstock of her indie decks, they're very slippery. So that's always a thing to contend with. And being more of an oracle-sized card too, even if it's a tarot deck, it can sometimes be a little tricky to contain. But there's a bit more, yeah, grip to this. And I mean, look how beautiful these backs are. This is a deck that I don't see using just for a day-to-day reading. I will find out what it seems best used for, but it does seem like something very, very well suited to bigger picture questions, delving into the liminal space of dreams and the symbolism to be found there. I just see these ravens as messengers from that dream world to our conscious psyche. And I mean, if you've seen this artist's artwork before, you know how intricately detailed it can be, just layer upon layer of so many symbols to read into. And so I don't think it takes drawing a lot of cards either. I don't see doing large spreads with this deck. I think, you know, even just a one card pull could be pretty powerful with this when you see how chock full. I mean, get the stag and then the owl and then this kind of bat-like, if not demon creature, that's justice. Cool. So there is such a different tone to this. I don't have the Crow Tarot. Since I didn't have that, you know, go for the ravens instead of the crows. But this just has such a different feel, it seems, from that deck. That Crow deck seems very urban and of this world, where there's just definitely something ethereal about this, something dark and shadowy about this too. So I think this could be an interesting deck for shadow readings as well. But as you could probably tell, the cards are still in order. So I have not shuffled or worked with this yet. Just kind of saving it for when I get back in town and compare it with my other Cullinane decks, perhaps, or something else entirely. It's a really cool deck to get just in time for spooky season, because it really sets an atmosphere. And I have to say, that's how I feel about the rest of these decks that I'm about to share. As I was unboxing them, and because I keep throwing cards everywhere, excuse me, as I was unboxing them all, I was like, ooh, 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 like they all seemed to come together in this like darkly cozy way that I feel like I am just going to be diving into them as soon as I get back and I'm ready to like fully embrace my tarot practice again, which admittedly has been quite interrupted in these weeks that I've been in the US. It's just been so busy here. And when I'm out of my own environment, out of my own daily routine, it is difficult to try to maintain any kind of consistency. But anyways, just kind of going along with these like darker autumnal feels, this Southern Gothic Oracle. And it's not that this is a spooky deck per se, but there is a Haunts expansion that you can get to accompany the deck. And I have shuffled mine in here, but here's an example from the Haunts expansion, the Conjured Spirit. And it has the keyword summoning drama, negativity. And this is something I already absolutely love about this oracle, that you get those keywords. And I don't know how well it's focusing. But anyways, you get those keywords. But I mean, otherwise, though, the whole deck is not like that, obviously. That's the Haunt expansion. But there's still just an atmosphere with this. And I saw Don Michelle recently pair this with Kelly's Nellie deck, which, just to grab a card from that, the border colors are very nicely in keeping with this deck. And there's such a sense of setting with Kelly's deck, with this whole story that goes with it. And then likewise, this like specific Southern setting for this deck, you get a real sense of place. And I know Dawn was pointing that out as well. And I was just enamored with that combination. So I had already ordered the Nellie deck, but I did go ahead, as a result of seeing her video, order this one then too, so that I could try that out. But meanwhile, looking at it, I just see, oh, such possibilities for pairing it with other decks that I have too. And I don't know, there's just something. I love that movie, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. That whole Gothic atmosphere with that movie. Oh, it's here I'm showing like, oh, cute little doggy. Okay, maybe that's not totally evoking that. But you know what I mean? When I just picture those trees with like the moss hanging down from them and the old graveyards and everything. Like, for me, it's like the next best spooky, cozy atmosphere next to what I find in England. Oh, here's from the Haunts expansion, I believe. Crimes of Passion. Ooh. Yeah, I just love it. The Vampire of Richmond. It's just cool. So I think this is going to be a fun deck to use for this season. And the Haunts expansion came with, there was like a QR code that you could scan that came with this full deck to get the PDF guidebook for the expansion, but the original deck does come with a physical guidebook. You get 1-page entries like that. Even their boxes, like, I don't know, there's just something. I might even like try using these decks together. I don't know. But then staying with the sense of atmosphere, oh, I have not backed many Kickstarter projects. 4 decks total, 2 of which I already have, this being the second one, and then 2 more on the horizon. So I don't do Kickstarter often, but I fell in love with this Witch, Women in Total Control of Herself Oracle deck. And look at this box, like in comparison to the Raven's Dream, it's a pretty good size and beautiful magnetic closure. Look at this book. That's a little chunk right there, huh? Oh my goodness, just like beautiful illustrations, just little added touches there, but there's poetry. And then you get the entries for the cards themselves. Like, here's the Spider Woman, number 3. Just like nice entries for each one. And it's so beautiful, and definitely a guidebook that I will use. And I have read with this deck a couple of times. It's very glossy, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's just in cases like this, right? Where you capture the light, or in the cases where I'm doing my videos from my tarot table and I've got that goddamn skylight over my head. It's constantly washing out the images. But it feels really nice and sturdy, and it does have this gilding, which is all right. But I think it fits this deck very well, and it doesn't feel like a gilding that's going to cut your fingers, as it sometimes can. Like, it's nicely done. But oh my gosh, these images! This is the Priestess of Priorities, the Dancer, Madonna of self-compassion, Keeper of silence, and Psyche. So they just each represent these different facets of a woman in total control of herself. Not like that has to be limited to women. I think embrace it as a divine feminine trait. Ooh, Harpy of Rage, yeah. For the ones that I've gone through, it seems like a good spectrum of characteristics shared, you know, both in the light and in the shadow. I think it's a deck that can call out, not just affirm your strength, but keeping you empowered still every step of the way. But I have found it to be really helpful. I did a reading during this visit, like after a particularly tiring trip within a trip. There was just like a lot back to back, and I've been traveling across multiple states. And I got, well, let me see if I can find it. I'll look for it in the guidebook anyways. I was just kind of wiped, but you know, I still find myself in this realm of family duty when I'm here, you know, like I want to be of help when I'm here. Okay, here we are. So I got the Rescuer, which spoke to empathy. The first words are, killer empathy is real. Most women never identify it, let alone unravel its suffocating grasp on their lives. While empathy is a superpower, it is a double-edged sword. It enables you to be considerate of and cooperative with others, but on the other side of empathy is the rescuer, who in her compassion is determined to save those she loves and that which she cares about most. This will lead her to sacrifice her time, energy, and other resources in the name of fixing, saving, solving, helping, and otherwise rescuing those people and situations she feels have great need. This side of empathy cuts deeply into her life force, often resulting in the hemorrhage of her time, vitality, and creativity. Amen. A witch, however, as in the acronym WITCH, knows that her empathy must have boundaries. She helps those who help themselves, jumping in to assist rather than save or fix. She trusts that others have their own guides and their own soul's code to assist their journey, just as she does. She's willing to resist the impulse to caretake or rescue, allowing others the opportunity to grow, expand, and develop their own agency. Now is the time to resist the urge to manage another's experience and keep your precious empathic energy in balance. I just really appreciated it because here it's highlighting what is a virtue to have. I'm glad that I have empathy, and I do consider it to be a superpower. But wow, and those of you that also have it can understand it. It can really be a drain, and I don't always set those boundaries that I need to. I'm really bad at that, and so I was just utterly depleted. And so here, that's like, I think maybe the first or second reading I had done with that oracle, and it just nailed it. And yeah, it's great. So now the boxes are just going to get increasingly bigger, because whereas this was large compared to the previous ones, and again, don't they just look pretty together? Like, they just look like they're part of the same collection to me. I don't know. I'm being weird, but it's just, it's such an aesthetic thing. And it's like, the feel of them is like the same. But anyway, while I was here, this was not waiting for me. I ordered it after I arrived so that I could receive it sooner than I would in the UK, because I don't think this is coming out until the end of October, and this is a deck I absolutely want to be working with before then. And I can't always trust that it's going to be in on time when Amazon UK promises. It's not always a guarantee. But anyways, so yeah, going from this size now to even bigger. So this is Mass Market, The Beloved Dead Oracle, which, oh, I have the Relative Tarot by Carrie Paris, and I love that so much. This is aesthetically very much in keeping with the Relative Tarot, just with a darker border around it. And this is an oracle, and it has its own structure. So starting with the Spirit Throne. I also have not shuffled and worked with this one yet, but you have these cards that are labeled with the act of love, and this is as is, be you. There's also cards just with a single keyword like addiction, ancestry, appearance, arcana. Okay, yeah, I'm just going all the way through. So obviously, alphabetically, I'm flipping through. So it's obviously going alphabetically, but there's wise guy. Sure, that's in my lineage somewhere. Ooh, witch, and then Ouija or Ouija. Ooh. I was just listening to the And That's Why We Drink podcast, which is one of my absolute favorites. It's half paranormal stories, half true crime stories. So, my God, wonderful. But anyways, just the other day, I was listening to episode on the history of Ouija, and I found it fascinating. But anyways, I don't work with a Ouija board or any sort of talking board, but working with this deck almost feels like it might be like that. And so I tread lightly with these things because I definitely, I don't know, I'm just like this average schmuck, and I'm always worried about like going in and if I'm going to be using cards as actual like portals to communication with something in the ether. You know, I'm always worried about like protecting myself enough going into something like that, or having the expertise enough to go into something like that. So that's where I feel like I'm not as fascinated as I am by the concept. I don't consider my tarot practice to include spirit communication. This could just be tapping into the realm of my own psyche that is aware of all that I've inherited from my lineage, whether it's a blood ancestry or the ancestors of place and time. Maybe it's just some way of tapping into that knowing within myself, and it's not actually with this other consciousness. You know, it really is one of those things where it just depends on where you fall on your beliefs with these things. And I feel like I'm always feeling my way through that as well. But I was just looking at this just to highlight like how pretty, again, you have these historic photos, but I love the wings that have been added to them, of course, lending a sort of like angelic and spirit guide quality to these people. But the beloved dead, so you've got this good-sized guidebook. And you know I love this. What's in the box? Haha. 7 reference. So it's comprised of 81 cards, 1 Spirit Throne card, as we saw, 10 Active Love cards, 69 Beloved Dead cards, and then the 1 Ouija card. We view this last card as the deck's wild card, and so it comes without interpretation. When it appears in a reading, take it as a sign that a spirit is lingering just outside the cards in your reading, or perhaps that another question needs to be asked. Ooh, so see, as much as I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm really wary about treading into these things, it's like, it's so my jam. Like, I love this. It makes me feel like I am like entering a Victorian seance. I just need to not be an idiot about it and end up unleashing something not good. But the Spirit Throne, think of this as a special staging card, the Majestic Spirit Throne. It isn't one of the family oracle cards. It's unique and has its own purpose. It's meant to be used as a seat of honor, a sacred space within which to hold counsel. You can use the Spirit Throne card to call upon your ancestors, to invite them for conversation, to connect with a particular spirit, and as a beginning or ending card to open and close ritual work. And then there is the Act of Love cards, which are your Special Forces team. These cards represent energetic transactions and choices that once made become your alchemy, turning baser instincts into gold. So on and so forth. But I just think it's lovely, and there's nice guidance on each of these cards. So the whole thing, very, very well done. Really lovely mass market deck. So do you see what I mean? Again, I'm going to hold them all up. These 4 boxes have just been like beckoning me to use them, and just being the end of September going into October, I feel like we're really entering their time to shine. So I'm excited about that. And I think also atmospherically in keeping is this last deck that I bought over here in the US of A, the Ritual Tarot. And that came in a nice velvet bag. Also, lovely hard box. Kind of like a semi-glossy surface here, but there's good, I don't want to say stick, like the cards stick together. They don't at all, but like just good grip. It doesn't feel like a very slippy deck. And I mean, this deck has been talked about so much. So what more can I say? But I think it's beautiful. I recently shared how I had a collage deck, Splurge, and this was, of course, a part of that. And really, I got a bunch, and hopefully they'll all have a place in my collection, but I also really wanted to experiment with what resonates and what doesn't. And some of the other ones that I had shared in that previous video, sorry, I'm getting hot. They seem to be pretty cohesive, whereas this has a whole lot going on. But again, like with the Raven's Dream Oracle, this is a deck that I don't think that I would be doing enormous spreads with. I mean, the size of the cards are large. They're more of an oracle size than a tarot, which all the better to present the visual elements involved and to be able to take it all in. And I have done just a 1-card reading with this so far, and it was gorgeous. And I paired it with that Witch Oracle. That's when I got that Rescuer card from the Witch Oracle, and the card it was paired with here was really speaking to that too. There was definitely a sense of like just needing to sort of like nurture and replenish myself and rejuvenate my own energies and creativity, things that I tend to back burner for the sake of others. And, you know, I do want to do that. I don't want to be a selfish a-hole, right? So can't all be about me. But I really appreciated these decks for giving me permission, if at least for that day, to kind of crawl into my cocoon and take care of some self-care to re-strengthen so I could put myself out there again for others. But this is the version that does not have any titles on it, which is just fine by me. I have plenty of tarot decks, and some of them like this. I mean, it's pretty obvious what it is. But for the ones that might not be, I look forward to testing myself, if just by their very essence that I can figure it out, as it was the card that I pulled. I knew straight away which one it was. But I like just having it as a visual oracle. Just let my tuition flow. That's what I'm always working on, trying to get a bit out of my intellectual mind and into the intuitive gut and see what I see from there. So yeah, I like this. I look forward to working with it more. And I think I'm set on collage decks now for quite some time, I think. I think that'll be it. At least for quite a while. I don't feel any need for any more. But again, here is the book. Example of a page for a card. So you get a lot going there. Opposing cards, reinforcing cards. So, really getting warm. So as I overheat here and can't think of anything more to share or say, thank you for joining me for yet another show and tell. I don't know if you like videos like that where it just seems like, look at what I got, look at what I got, new and shiny, blah, blah, blah. But hopefully it at least gave you some eye candy to look at. I always enjoy seeing new decks that are out there. It's just fun to see what other artwork is out there and what other approaches people have to this beautiful tarot system. Let me know if you've worked with any of these decks, if you have more experience with them than I do, if you have any recommendations, any fun pairing ideas. Let me know what you've got in store for this season, just what you like to work with in the autumn, what you like to work with as spooky season arrives. Do you do ancestor work also, and are you starting to ramp up your practice for that at this time of year as the veil supposedly thins? Let me know all about it, and thanks again for joining me. Bye.